The night Maya Carter first steered her battered Honda Civic into the forgotten woods beyond Riverside Valley, she believed she was only searching for a place where her son could sleep without shivering. The October wind knifed through the thin car doors, and Tyler's small breaths fogged the glass like quiet pleas she didn't have the power to answer. Every mile felt like a confession of failure, of exhaustion, of dreams she'd long traded for survival. When the trees finally parted to reveal the gaping mouth of the abandoned railway tunnel, she felt an unexpected pull, as if something older than the town itself had been waiting for her. The bricks were worn, the air colder, the silence so complete it seemed to swallow her footsteps whole. But it was shelter, solid walls, an unmoving sky, a place where no security guard would tap on her window and ask her to leave. She stepped inside cautiously, her flashlight a trembling beam slicing through generations of dust. She expected rats or broken rails or the skeletal remains of a place time had murdered and forgotten. Instead, deeper within the darkness, a single glint of metal caught the light, a rigid, unnatural color among stone and decay. She moved closer, confused, her pulse beginning to drum with a rhythm that felt like warning or fate. There in the wall stood a sealed steel door, immaculate, deliberate, impossibly out of place. Maya felt her breath catch. Whatever lay behind that door wasn't abandoned. Someone had hidden it. Someone had protected it. And without knowing why, she understood that turning back was no longer an option. She returned the next night, not with fear, but with purpose shaped by desperation. Homelessness had already stripped her of pride. Now it sharpened her into someone resourceful, someone bold, someone with nothing left to lose. She sat Tyler in the car with a granola bar and whispered that he would be her lookout, the way brave explorers watched over each other. Then she walked into the tunnel with a cheap lockpick set she'd learned to use from grainy online videos. The steel door loomed like an accusation, but beneath her trembling hands it slowly surrendered, each click echoing through the darkness like a heartbeat. When the door finally swung open, a stale gust of preserved air washed over her, a scent like forgotten archives and sealed secrets. A staircase descended into blackness. She hesitated only long enough to remind herself that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something mattered more. Step by step, she descended into what felt like another century. And when she reached the chamber below, Maya froze. Before her stretched an underground vault the size of a cathedral, lined with railway treasures, crates of porcelain, paintings in gilded frames, and artifacts meticulously arranged beneath layers of dust. A private museum, buried and immaculate, each item labeled in careful script, each piece worth more than she could fathom. Her breath broke into a whisper, "This can't be real." Yet the silence of the chamber answered her. It was, and it had been waiting for someone exactly like her to find it. In the far corner of the vault, atop a mahogany desk untouched by time, Maya found the journal, the heartbeat of the collection. Its pages revealed the mind of Marcus Vanair, a railway magnate who'd poured 25 years into gathering beauty from across the world. Silver from Boston estates, paintings from New York galleries, railway cars restored with obsessive devotion. And darker things too, artifacts whose histories belonged to wars, displacement, sorrow. He catalogued everything with reverence but also guilt. The final entry, dated only days before his death in 1978, shattered Maya's remaining doubts. He had hidden the vault intentionally. He had sealed it away from his estranged children, whom he called vultures hungry for unearned inheritance, and left a letter for whoever eventually broke the silence. That letter trembled in Maya's hands as she read it once, then again, unable to believe the weight of its promise. Van Eyre declared that whoever discovered the vault documented it and proved their claim would inherit the entire $215 million collection under the doctrine of finder's rights. He named an attorney in Philadelphia, Robert Chen, who would validate everything if given the code word, Riverside. Maya pressed the letter against her chest as tears blurred the ink. For the first time in months, she felt something dangerously close to hope. This wasn't just treasure. It was a lifeline thrown across decades, from a dying man to a desperate mother he would never meet. It was the chance to step out of survival and into possibility. The next morning, Maya drove Tyler to school with steady hands but a storming heart. After she dropped him off, she sat in the library parking lot and dialed the Philadelphia number with every shred of courage she had left. When Robert Chen answered, his voice cautious, aged, disbelieving, she told him the code word. For several long seconds, there was only silence on the line, as though the past 45 years paused to listen. Then Chen exhaled shakily and spoke words that made Maya grip the wheel until her knuckles whitened. "I never thought this day would actually come." He insisted she drive to Philadelphia so the sealed document could be opened in her presence. And so she quit both of her minimum-wage jobs, filled the Civic with her last tank of gas, and drove east through the night with Tyler sleeping in the back seat. In Chen's cramped conference room the next day, she watched the elderly attorney break open the envelope Van Eyre had entrusted to him decades earlier. Inside lay meticulous legal instructions, proof that Van Eyre had designed the vault not as an inheritance, but as a test of character and circumstance. Even more astonishing, he had set aside millions in a trust to pay for the finder's legal defense in anticipation of the fight that would come. As Chen read aloud the final clause, requiring that a portion of the wealth be used to uplift struggling families, Maya felt the foundation of her life shift. This fortune wasn't just meant to save her. It was meant to save others through her. The legal war ignited exactly as Chen predicted. Within 48 hours of filing her claim, the world turned its cameras on Maya Carter. News vans trailed her like shadows. Riverside Valley buzzed with rumors, and 3 powerful opponents emerged, each convinced they deserved the vault more than the woman who had actually found it. A resurrected railway corporation claimed the land belonged to them by historical default. The state insisted abandoned property of that magnitude reverted to public ownership. And the Van Eyre family, furious and indignant, hired a fleet of lawyers to accuse Maya of trespassing, fabricating evidence, and exploiting a dead man's eccentricity. They dissected her life publicly. The eviction notices, the nights in her car, the address she'd borrowed to keep Tyler enrolled in school. Every flaw became ammunition, but she wasn't fighting alone. Sarah Reeves, a civil rights attorney with a spine forged in courtroom battles, took her case. Sarah crafted a narrative that reframed Maya not as an opportunist, but as the embodiment of exactly what Marcus Van Eyre had intended. A woman who had survived hardship, persisted with dignity, and discovered the vault because she had no other choice. Their early press conference turned the tide. Maya spoke not with theatrics but with raw honesty, describing nights in the Civic, the cold, the hunger, the desperate courage that led her into the tunnel. Her voice trembled, but the truth in it did not. And when journalists gasped at the projected images of the vault's treasures, the story changed. Maya was no longer a suspect. She was a symbol. The courtroom chapter stretched across months. Motions filed, hearings postponed, expert witnesses dissecting provenance and property law. But the more Maya stood her ground, the clearer it became that the vault was legally hers. Every journal entry, every photo, every clause in Van Air's dusty documents affirmed his intention. The vault belonged to the finder. And Maya, with the calloused hands of someone who had scrubbed motel floors and stocked store shelves, was that finder. When the judge finally ruled in her favor, the courtroom fell silent before erupting into disbelief and exhilaration. Maya stood stunned, Tyler's small hand wrapped tightly around hers. The official valuation of the collection, after deductions, after market variations, after legal obligations, left her with $95 million. Enough to buy not just a home, but a future. Enough to turn survival into stability and fear into freedom. Yet as she walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun, Maya felt something deeper than relief. She felt responsibility settle on her shoulders like a mantle she was ready to bear. Van Air's final request, that 25% of the fortune be used to uplift families like hers, became her compass. She didn't want to be another story of wealth hoarded behind locked doors. She wanted to build something lasting, something generous, something that transformed the tunnel that had once sheltered her. And so Maya Carter, who had once counted pennies in parking lots, stepped into a new life with purpose thicker than wealth itself. With determination sharpened by memory, Maya returned to Riverside Valley not as a symbol, but as a builder. The first project she funded was the Hope Center, a shelter and resource hub that offered warm beds, job training, childcare, and legal assistance. She worked side by side with volunteers, greeting every person who walked through the doors as if they carried a piece of her own past. Soon the center pulsed with life, hundreds finding refuge each month, families avoiding eviction, veterans receiving overdue benefits, parents gaining the stability to rebuild. And Maya didn't stop there. She transformed the old railway tunnel itself, turning its once crumbling entrance into the Van Air Heritage Museum. Architects restored the brick facade. Historians curated displays about the town's industrial history. And deep below, the vault became a guided exhibit that drew visitors from across the country. Yet in a quiet alcove near the entrance, Maya insisted on displaying the truth of her own journey, photographs of the Civic where she and Tyler had slept, pages from her journal, mementos from the nights she spent praying for a future she couldn't yet imagine. The museum became a tribute not just to Van Air's treasures, but to the resilience of people society often overlooked. Under her guidance, Riverside Valley revived, crime fell, new businesses opened, young families returned. And the town that had once abandoned its own now found pride in the story of the woman who had resurrected it from the ruins of a forgotten tunnel. Years later, as dusk softened the edges of her quiet home, Maya paused by Tyler's bedroom door. He was older now, confident, thriving in a world she had once feared would swallow him whole. Watching him bent over his homework, at a real desk in a room that was his, Maya felt her throat tighten with gratitude. She switched off his lamp gently, the way she once had to hush the Civic's dome light at night. In the silence of the hallway, she found herself remembering the steel door, the cold tunnel, the weight of Van Air's letter in her shaking hands. The treasure had changed everything, but not in the way the world assumed. The true transformation wasn't measured in dollars or museum exhibits. It lived in the families who now had keys to stable homes, in the children who no longer wondered where they would sleep, in the quiet dignity restored to those who had been dismissed as invisible. It lived in Tyler's safety, his dreams, his future. Maya understood then what Van Eyre had meant when he wrote that beauty survives even in the darkest times. The vault's riches had created beauty, but her courage had created hope. And as she wandered through her warm, quiet home, she realized she had inherited something far greater than a fortune. She had inherited a purpose, a legacy, a second chance. Thank you for listening to this story. May it remind you that even in the deepest darkness, someone brave enough to look can find the door that changes everything.